Warning, listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mise.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. You know, Mickey Mantle, the great baseball player, once famously said, "If I knew I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself." And, you know, I always thought of that as physical health. But as I grow older, it really applies as much to mental health. And after a lifetime of, if not bad habits, at least quite a few not so good habits, I run into the challenge of how to correct them. You know, the answers seem like they should be easy, but they aren't. And when you're looking for solutions, it seems so complicated. But my guest today does truly have a gift for simplifying it. Jennifer Rychlick, also known as Coach Ms.Mindful, is the founder of SheFlower, Therapeutics, and a certified longevity health coach who specializes in natural remedies to enhance and empower the mind and body. At the young age of 38, as a single mother of three, Jennifer faced a life-threatening battle with ovarian cancer, and from that experience, discovered a deep passion to understand why there is so much suffering in health and wellness, from anxiety all the way to diseases like cancer. Jennifer's mission is to share what she describes as easy and pleasurable solutions to support longevity health. And her unique way of seeing the body as a system and what makes it sick and what makes it tick have been called game-changing and to many even life-saving. So with that, Jennifer, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good to have you because, you know, the older I get, I used to think, well, I get sick. I'm sure they make a pill for that. And I get older and I realize, well, they don't make pills for that, or maybe the pills they do make for that are causing more damage than the problems that they solve. Yeah. I want to get into that, but first I want to talk about something, if you don't mind. You say your battle with cancer. I've heard you describe that as what you call a big wake-up call to this one life. Can you share the meaning of that and its effect that it had on you?
Yes, absolutely. So this was my big wake-up call. It actually happened to be the day after my 38th birthday, which I laugh and say, I thought it was the worst birthday present possible. When I discovered, honestly, it was the best birthday present because it really woke me up to this one life. And that was the day after my 38th birthday. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And at the time, I was a single mom of three. I worked a very high demanding career in the beauty industry, working with women and, seeing just so much suffering around me. And then there it was, I was being diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And so really my big wake up call was sitting in chemotherapy with lots of other women. And I always picture it as kind of like AA, where everyone kind of sits around and shares their stories and really truly are fighting for their life. And I would meet women, which really stuck out to me, that would tell me they were back with the same type of cancer as me for their third and fourth time. And I was always one of the youngest ones there too. And so I just was like, there's no way I'm coming back in this room again. And it was after, really fighting, going through the chemotherapy, going through the battle, which honestly actually almost killed me on day 16. I lost my hair in one day. It was, very much a wake-up call to this one life. And so as soon as I, recovered from that, it just was I just felt it deep in my soul that I needed to understand why so much suffering? Why am I getting cancer at the young age of 38 years old, in addition to meeting other, women fighting cancer? And so that was really, really where I did my deep dive in, and I'm here today to share it with others.
Well, and I appreciate you coming to share this with others, because it's something that I think so many people look for, and there's so many easy answers, that seem to be available out there. But once you dig into them, you realize that they're not so easy, and they may not be answers at all. And I think one of the things that makes it so difficult is that it seems like it should be so easy. We wake up in the morning, we know that what's on our mind, what we're about to eat, what we really want to eat, isn't going to be good for us. We know that the activities that we're about to avoid is not going to be in our best interest. Yet we continue to follow those habits, and to me, even some people that should have a wake up call with certain health crises in their life, go back to those habits. What is it that makes us so cruel to ourselves, and make those decisions to do things that we know just aren't best for us?
It's a big, great question. Yes. I really find that, and I always tell people when I meet up, to give yourself grace and forgiveness, because, first and foremost, we're really busy. Life is busy. And I find as women that we're busy being everything to everybody. We're trying to be the best mom, the best partner, career, sometimes entrepreneur. And at the end of the day, we're the last ones, and we easily give up on ourselves. And so then it's, we have that glass of wine or that second glass of wine, and, not even really realizing it, that the more that we consume these things, that it is damaging to our health. And the reason I think that we do it is it's comfortable. It makes us feel good in the moment, and rightfully so, because, we're busy being everything to everybody. So I think eventually, and you were talking about this at the beginning, as we age, the body starts to whisper, if not scream. And I describe that as my cancer. Is I actually was the one who discovered something was wrong with me. My body had been whispering to me that eventually it was screaming at me. And I went to my doctor and said, something is not right with me. And so I think a lot of times we don't listen to the whispers. We just decide to just numb ourselves, whether that's through alcohol, whether that's through food, whether that's through drugs, And like you said, a lot of times we'll go to the doctor maybe and get a prescription, and maybe that's not actually helping. Maybe that's just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it. And what I find is our bodies are so fascinating, and that when we just get outside of our body and look at it as a system and understand what makes it sick and what makes it tick, then it's a lot easier to, figure out what's going to be best for the individual. And that's, I think, another thing is that, our life experiences truly from the day that we were born and how we were raised, and everything that we've been through till today has an impact on our mental health, emotional health, physical, spiritual. And so it's like starting from there and really researching, how we were born, how we were raised, what we've been consuming, and then looking at our body as a system and understanding, okay, well, I need vitamin D and I need B12 and all of these things that this fascinating body of ours needs certain things to operate in health. And if we're not getting it, then, eventually, even though the body's so fascinating and can, fight it for a long, long time, but eventually, it's like cancer is a buildup. It can live in your body for a really long time before you get a diagnosis. So, and I do feel like it can be the wild, wild west where it's like, oh my gosh, what do I believe? What do I do? Where do I go? So it can be confusing, and I feel like we need to simplify it more. And that's what I like to do.
And I think it's important. And what makes it so much more powerful is that you've been through this. Right. It's something that you lived through, and you've had the same fears and the same Anxiety is the same unknowns that a lot of people that are going through this had. And, you took the steps to say, okay, I need to figure this out. Because when people are going through treatment, especially for something like cancer, you're given a cocktail of some very unnatural things, right? A lot of pharmaceuticals. Yeah. And I've heard you talk about that experience because, the cocktail that they give you, helps you recover from the cancer, but you actually came up with a path for recovering from those pharmaceuticals that you were taking in such huge, quantities to get off of that path. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you discovered during that journey?
Absolutely. So, chemotherapy is chemicals, right? And the chemicals that they make chemotherapy out of and pharmaceuticals actually come from herbs, plants, natural medicine, which, food is medicine, food is information to the body. And so they actually take natural things to make these chemical things to, kill disease or ease anxiety. As an example, I was given Xanax through my cancer battle, as a single mom fighting ovarian cancer with a high demanding career, and actually concerned of losing my job fighting this battle. That, of course, Xanax works very well. Anybody who's familiar with it, what Xanax is an anti-anxiety, and it works extremely well. But one of the things that I love to share and make clear to people is that there's more than one way to get to the destination. So being highly addicted to the Xanax, because your body becomes chemically dependent on it, that I knew after my study and studying natural medicine that this was not good for me. And thinking about getting off of Xanax gave me anxiety. So what I did was start implementing these natural herbs and eventually took myself within actually short order off the Xanax with natural medicine. And so it's really important to understand that, the Xanax really works with anxiety, but there's multiple ways, to get to the destination, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to, get off a pharmaceutical. There's multiple options. So I think that's important. We get stuck doing the same thing over and over, and we're not getting the result we want. And a lot of times we just don't know. So I like to share easy and pleasurable ways to get to the destination that I believe is best and the way that it's supposed to be working in harmony with our body.
And, when you bring up that anxiety, we think about, physical pain or physical health. I cut myself. Okay. There's an instant response. I know that something needs to be done. Or you feel bad, you have a stomachache, a headache, do that. But anxiety seems to take its toll on both, I guess, physical and mental. So let's go a little bit deeper into anxiety. What are some of those easy and pleasurable ways that folks can deal with anxiety, outside of something like Xanax?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, anxiety a lot of times, most of the time, is not actually the circumstance. What happens is our bodies become, so one of the things that makes it sick is chemicals. We're bombarded on a daily basis with chemicals from our air, our water, heavy metals, our foods, plastic. I mean, it goes on, and our bodies are not designed to take on all these chemicals. And so this, we don't even realize, put this little puzzle together that when our bodies is intoxicated with chemicals, that it can bring on anxiety. You may be in a circumstance that, makes you anxious, but it comes on so fast because your body is just chemically toxic. And in addition to that, you have your microbiome. Your microbiome is one of the key components to your well-being and has huge impact on anxiety. And your microbiome makes up 90% of the cells in your body. And if we're not feeding that microbiome, which I call the little army inside of you, like I picture the ants go marching one by one, because they're in there digesting your food, making vitamins, really in charge of your health. And so if you have, a microbiome that's really unhealthy, you're going to experience anxiety often, daily, hourly sometimes. So between the chemical intoxication to an unhealthy microbiome, it's really hard to even get to a place of easing that anxiety. So for one, that I explain to people is just an easy way to detox your body is obviously try to eliminate these things, but some of them you just can't eliminate, from the air and the water and foods and plastics and things like that, is activated charcoal is a natural supplement that you just take one a day with water, and it's actively pulling toxins out of your body. So that's just an example. There's other herbs you can take that, just actively pulling chemicals from your body that is easy and pleasurable. You don't even realize you're doing it. You just make it a habit in the morning, like that. The other one that I'm really passionate about is CBD Therapeutics. One of the, actually not even one of, the largest cell receptor system in the human body is called your endocannabinoid system. And our bodies make what's called endogenous cannabinoids, anandamide and 2-AG, and this system is actually in charge of upregulating and downregulating different systems in the body, creating homeostasis and balance of an internal organism. And so what happens is as we age and diet and all these toxic chemicals coming in, we could become very depleted. And so then the system that's in charge of creating homeostasis and balance and health of an internal organism is really suffering and depleted. And so our endogenous cannabinoids that we produce become, very minimal, if not any, as we age. And so that is what CBD Therapeutics is cannabinoids. And actually THC, which, kind of has a bad name because it's the one that does give those psychoactive effects, is more bioidentical to the anandamide that our body actually makes. And so just implementing a CBD is going to help upregulate and downregulate the largest cell receptor system of the human body. So it's doing all kinds of things when it comes to not only anxiety, but your overall health and well-being mentally, in addition to not only just internally.
Well, I tried to write all that down. And I have to say, I'll be the one to admit for myself, for the listeners, my ears did perk up when you said THC. And my first thing is like, I wonder if that's what she means by pleasurable. But I do know from following you and understanding what you're doing, you talk about something that people may or may not be familiar with called micro dosing. So when you're talking about these cannabinoids, and I probably just butchered that, you're not saying that, okay, the solution to all my problems is to go buy a big skull bong and I'll be fine, right?
No,
okay,
absolutely not.
So I think it's important to explain that.
Sure. So one of my biggest discoveries, my mission was to not only understand disease, but how to never get it again. Once you've had, and I know every single person who's fought cancer can relate to this, is, oh my gosh, is it going to come back? And so what gives me the peace of mind that I'm never getting it again is that I'm giving my body things that fight cancer, right? That, another thing I didn't realize when I had cancer is that we all have cancer cells within us. It's when they take over the body. So, giving myself things that kill cancer cells is very important to me. And one of the biggest things, one of many things that cannabis therapeutics does actually is an anti-cancer. It's an anti-inflammatory. Disease usually comes from inflammation of the body. And so it's just a super powerful, powerful medicine. And we actually create a chemical just like it. And I think that's where, we really need to be educated in why cannabis medicine is, in my opinion, one of the absolute top herbs you could put in you, because it does so many things and the body actually creates a chemical just like it. But it's also very important, again, going back to that, how you were raised, how you were born, where you're at today, that cannabis therapeutics is a personalized medicine. It is for the individual. It's something that you always want to start slow and low. And I like tinctures. I don't believe in going, like you said, at getting a bong and all of that stuff. I like to teach the medicine side, that you are taking it, microdosing what's going to work for you. And it is very personalized. And so it's using tinctures, like a medicine, and figuring out where your sweet spot is, whether it's pain or anxiety or prevention of disease. There's so many things the medicine does that you really see a cascade of benefits when you start to implement it as medicine. And of course, the THC is that one, like you said, the pleasurable. But again, when your body produces it, because we all produce it, and if you don't mind me adding, one of the things that I love for women and understanding, first of all, the female anatomy, so going a little bit deeper into this system, the endocannabinoid system, the largest cell receptor system in the human body, you have these CB1 and CB2 receptors that are covered throughout your body. Your brain, your central nervous system, your gut, which is your microbiome, which I spoke about. But the female anatomy is covered in it. The CB1 and CB2 receptors all over the female anatomy. I had ovarian cancer, so this one's a really big one to me. Understanding that the system, is key, that we have these endogenous cannabinoids. And as women, when we give birth to our babies, we make this abundant amount in our breast milk. So one of the first things we give our babies is anandamide, which is a cannabinoid. And the only other way to get cannabinoids, you can get some in like pepper and chocolate, one of the reasons women crave chocolate, but also really to get a rich dose amount is through cannabis therapeutics. And so the female anatomy has so much to do with the system, and we don't even realize it. So it helps us in so many ways, from hormonal balance, PMS disorders, fertility, because it's covered in the female anatomy. And we also give it to our babies when they're first born.
Listening to what you're talking about, I mean, it's clear that you're passionate about this stuff. And, the fact that you talk about it's all, individualized. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate, respect about what you're doing is it's not a one size fits all. And it sounds like that you really put a lot of thought and care when you're working with people and discovering what that, I guess you would call that minimum effective dose, right? To make it work for the individual. Is that something that's difficult to measure, or what does that process look like?
So in my personal brand, SheFlower, I have a level system, starting always at level 1. It's going to be your absolute minimum, tiny dose. And so you work with that for a couple of weeks. And if that doesn't do anything, then you move up to a level 2. Working now for many years, I've been doing this now for 9 years. And there's a clear difference with, as a male, I have worked with males, and it's interesting to see the difference in the female endocannabinoid system and the male, and what the dosage is, because for the most part, they are very similar as far as for females, but men are totally different, and age is totally different also. Kids, actually, when people, there is natural doctors out there who help kids fight cancer with cannabis, and they take very, very high doses. Men, probably, I'm guessing your age, maybe, it's a very small dose. So it's interesting that I do believe, as much as it's very personalized, from my experience with working with hundreds of people over the last several years, it does come down to pretty much a specific dose for men and for women in certain ages, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. Even though you could establish, what works and the benefits of all this stuff, but it seems to be human nature, the irony, the cruel irony of human nature that cures have always and probably will always sell better than prevention. But I think there's a growing segment, and I think a lot of people that follow you are as interested in prevention as they are in the cures, because there has to be a mental side of this for people to mentally prepare and to commit to doing something. Like I said, cure is probably a lot easier for people to say, okay, I got this. How do I get rid of it? Is that something that you work with people as a coach in developing a regimen or a program to not just fix what's broken, but also to prevent some of the stuff from happening?
Absolutely. I mean, it really, truly is what I like to call prevention of disease. And it's so much greater than cannabis therapeutics. I'm really into other herbs and just truly giving the body what it needs to operate in health. Again, going back to these bodies are so fascinating and they need certain things, right? It's like the car needs oil, it needs gas, it needs water, it needs certain things to get to the destination that you want to go on. And the body is the same thing. There's no difference at all. It needs certain things. And unfortunately, in today's world, there's just so much toxicity and we're giving that to our bodies, and so the bodies just become depleted. They don't have the stuff it needs to operate in health. So it's really meeting you where you're at, going through and understanding. It's important to me to know how you were born. Your microbiome, which I talked about, it's 90% of the cells in your body. You get that through birth, through the birth canal. And so a lot of times, if you were born a C-section, as an example, you might have had a lot of challenges as a child. And I find this over and over again when I meet with people. And so it's really, okay, how do we rebuild that microbiome? Make sure you have a thriving microbiome that's supporting you. What do you need to be microdosing yourself? Because when we talk about microdosing, it's not just CBD cannabis therapeutics. It's microdosing turmeric and ginger and adaptogen herbs and, easy and pleasurable things that, yes, diet's important. But what I find working with people is that that's a big struggle, especially in today's world and just going through the grocery store. There's 75% of food in the grocery store has sugar in it. There's 56 different names for sugar. So sugar is very addicting. It's becomes complicated that it's like, okay, let's make your diet what's, comfortable for you and your family that's somewhat healthy. But if we're waking up in the morning and we're getting our herbs in us and we take some certain herbs at night, you're giving the body what it needs to operate in health. I mean, I personally haven't been sick in so many years. Years. Not a cold, not a flu, but what's really great is I have great tips with that too, natural things. And if you were to get a cold, how do we fight it naturally, quickly, and effectively? And so yes, I work as an individual with you to see where you're at today, what fits in your lifestyle, because again, we're all different. We've all been through different experiences. And I think to add on to that is, we go to the doctor and we trust him so much. And I think that was a big part of my story is I went to the first doctor, first oncologist. He's like, here's what we're doing. Day 16, I literally was in the hospital fighting for my life, lost my hair, and going into the morning, by nighttime, I was bald and really fighting for my life. So again, going back to that, there's multiple ways to get to the destination. I think if it was ever to happen to me again, which I don't believe it will, is I would go a more natural way. I would research and look at what are all my options and do what feels right to me. Really, we do so much of what we're taught and told and we just go with the flow. And I'm not saying that's, we shouldn't do that. But I think this is really just, again, coming back to that being mindful of all things and being like, okay, do I really know if this is the right choice for me? And so I like to really work with the individual, where they're at, their story, what got them to be where they're at today, and then work, at what they're going to move forward with. And so much, again, is those habits. 90% of what we do is on autopilot. So it's like, how do we shift these little habits that aren't serving us and, with easy and pleasurable things?
Well, I think, the mental side, it's, apparently so crucial and at the same time so neglected by so many, because, I often say that if the answer was that easy, all a fitness coach would say is, hey, fatty, do a sit-up, right? And problem solved.
Right.
You mentioned toxicity, and I think it's becoming more and more clear to a lot of people the how toxic things like sugar are, that have always, and it's kind of weird that, something that's so toxic is also at the same time a treat. As we're having this conversation, Halloween was just a couple of weeks ago, and that's where we all go crazy and fill our body with toxins cheerfully, right? Right. And I know that you talk about the importance of detoxing, but not just detoxing the body, but also detoxing the mind. How does that work?
The sweet mind is what I like to call it. I call her a beast. She is a beast. She has 60,000 thoughts a day. And so, wow, it's like, what are we telling ourselves? What is the chitter chatter inside of us? I believe we are our most intimate relationship. We know ourselves more than anybody, right? And so this mind of ours can wander. And it's so important to quiet her down and also take control of her. When you have 60,000 thoughts a day, and the brain actually goes into, it wants to always default into a negative, which is it's to protect us. But we have this 5-second rule. As soon as something happens, we have 5 seconds to interrupt that. If it's like, oh God, I'm fat, or oh, I'm ugly, or oh, I can't do this, or oh, I can't, I never, I will, all these negative things. We have to be aware of that and intercept that to go, oh no, yes, I can. Oh, I'm open to that. Understanding that 60,000 thoughts a day, and the brain automatically goes into a default, which can be a negative vibration. We have a lot of negative thoughts going on, and that affects our health so much. We don't even realize the impact it has, not only just the impact, mentally on us, but also we create bad chemicals for us. As women, we create abundant amounts of cortisol when we go into these negative thoughts and then go into anxiety. And it's just this tumbleweed that's not serving. So it's really important to quiet the mind because it chitter chatters so much. And if you break that down, it's like, 300 thoughts an hour. And so it's really, how do we quiet the mind? And that's really hard to do. It takes practice. I believe with everything, it's practice. I always say to my clients, give yourself grace. Life is not easy. We're trying to figure it out, So I really recommend guided meditation. Guided meditation, the reason I believe guided is because it's going to bring you back. So just some easy, simple tips for any listeners right now is go to YouTube and type in guided meditation. And what that does is as soon as your mind starts to wander, it says, okay, come back now, because our mind is such a chitter chatter box. And so really quieting your mind, when we quiet our mind, we hear more. We really can hear. This is where our downloads come in, the things that inspire us, the things that feed our soul and make us feel good. But it's not easy. I've been practicing for almost 10 years now. And so it's a practice.
Yeah. Well, I think, practice that never seems to make perfect, but I think that's the whole point, is to keep trying, because I will tell you, there is nothing that will put a spotlight on how busy your mind is, than trying meditation for the first time.
Correct. Yes, that is true. I think that what I like to do is always go to the deeper reason, like understanding it on a deeper level, understanding that the brain, how often it thinks, that it goes into default, that you have these 5 seconds. of these neural pathways. I mean, and I know that sounds like really scientific and like maybe bores people, but once you get it and go, okay, all right, I get this, I understand this. The more we understand our internal self, the easier it is to own our health and to take, what I call being your superpowers. We are so powerful. And we're just, again, I think a lot of times I feel like with women, because women is really my client, is that we're just so busy being everything to everybody that we don't stop and pause and quiet the mind and really listen to our bodies.
Hearing you, it takes on a new meaning when when you talk about listening to your body, because a lot of times, and me as a guy that, isn't too often accused of being a deep thinker, listening to your body is a phrase I heard, and I kind of got it, but when you talk about it, it really does make you realize and how kind of in tune you can be with your body and what's working and what's not working. And I think, that's what brings me to, I think it would be a shame to have you on the show and not talk about this, especially during this time that we're dealing with COVID pandemic. There's more talk about the immune system than I think there's been in a long time, if ever. And the things and the methods that you've come up with can build a strong immune system, which I think a lot of people are very interested in. Can you kind of dive into this and the benefits of some of these therapeutics and the benefits of some of the strategies that you're talking about that can help build an immune system, and even possibly fight off something like COVID or the flu or even a cold, without reaching for the quick NyQuil, put me to sleep types of medicine.
Yes, absolutely. And this is whether COVID or not, this is where it all begins, whether it's cancer, anxiety, COVID. The immune system is so key. And again, I believe it's easier than we think it is to take care of it. And so the number one is that microbiome. And so feeding your microbiome, it likes fermented foods. People go, ooh, fermented foods? Not so much, right? Nobody really loves fermented foods. So, some people like kimchi, things like that. But
give me a Bubby's pickle, man. I'll take that.
There you go. Kombucha, another really great one. I don't drink alcohol rarely. I might have maybe a margarita in Hawaii or something like that, but I drink kombucha. It's, probiotics, feeding that party going on inside of you, 90% of the cells of your body, and your gut microbiome sits 70% to your immune system. It's kind of like the army protecting you. I always like to visualize. So I just see this army and they're working for me. And so I like to say that I feed my party every single day, a couple times a day. So at nighttime, I take a pro and prebiotic. And so that's feeding that army inside you, right? And then maybe I'll have a kombucha, and that's, again, bringing more into that, your microbes, feeding that army inside of you. So that is number one, I think, when it comes to building your immune system, is making sure that you have a strong microbiome, a healthy microbiome. Now, there's bad microbes also, and these are things that are linked to disease. And so, this is where you can really go into a naturopath and they can help you more. But I believe that you can fix your microbiome in pretty short order if you start to give it what it wants, right? It's like we give our dog a treat, we give our kids a treat. Why aren't we giving our body a treat, right? The 90% of the cells in your body that are large and in charge of your well-being. And so seeing it that way, it's like, okay, what have I given my microbiome today? And if we're giving it sugar, we're feeding the bad microbes. And that's a big one. Sugar is a really, really, really big one that we don't realize, because why? 75% of the food in the grocery store has some type of sugar in it. And so I always say that we're kind of led down a path that's not really serving to living our best life, to having our best health. But again, when we're more mindful and we know, then it's easier to make better choices. So that being one. And then when I talk about the body needs certain, chemicals to operate in health. So vitamin C, vitamin D, B12. These are really big, important chemicals that the body needs to operate in health. So really it's just a really good quality multivitamin and minerals. Minerals are so key. We don't realize that, we need the magnesium to sleep good. So getting our minerals. So really it's just your dailies. And then, my top 3 always is your daily multi-minerals, probiotic, and CBD. I'm such a big believer in CBD. But when it comes to fighting, let's say, there's actually, for all you listeners, I have a free download of how to build a strong immune system and some great herbs to fight COVID. In addition, I make what's called fire water, and you can find this on my Instagram at Coach Ms.Mindful, on my IGTV. It's a recipe that you make at home. Anyone can make it, and it's called fire water. And so you make this. I don't live without it. And if you were to feel like you were getting a cold, maybe a little sniffly, you had a sore throat, you take a shot of it 3 to 4 times a day. And 99% of the time, the next day you wake up and you're like, I feel like $1 million. It's amazing what natural medicine can do to kill viruses inside of you. Heat kills viruses. And so fire water is very hot. It's got onions and ginger and horseradish and peppers. But you become accustomed to it that you're like, ooh, this is good. I mean, I have people try it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. My naturopath told me I needed to bottle it up and sell it, but I haven't got that far yet. So just, making sure if you were to get a cold or COVID as an example, is that you're taking that vitamin C, that zinc, 3 to 4 times a day, drinking that fire water. And there's lemadium root is an herb that they used in the 1917 pandemic. And it saved several tribes. There's some great stories out there about this root called lemadium root. So I always recommend that people have that on hand. It's great for other things, but you can find a lot of information on my website where I share how to build a robust immune system with natural medicine.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to try that because I would say, most days of the week I feel pretty lucky if I feel like $100. But if you could feel like $1 million with some fire water, I'm definitely going to give that a shot.
It's good stuff.
Well, first I have to say, you certainly made this conversation easy and pleasurable. And I think, in fact, I'm sure that we've just barely scratched the surface, and you have so much, and you're so giving and sharing with this information as well. I truly do consider you an influencer with the things that you are doing and the people that you are helping so selflessly. That came out wrong. Selflessly. I should find another word.
Thank you. You're very sweet.
So I know you mentioned the Instagram, but how can we find out more about Coach Ms.Mindful, Jennifer Rychlick?
Yes. Coach Ms.Mindful. And it's just really being mindful of all things, right? We again, life's so busy. And so we're just busy instead of really being in our superpowers and being mindful of our environment, the things that we're consuming, our energy that we're putting out, the energy that we're consuming. So SheFlower.com is my website, and all of my social media links are on there. I have a YouTube channel. A lot of these little tips that I've been giving, I have little quick videos, how to make fire water, how I got myself off of Xanax. So there's great videos on there, and that's how you can reach me.
Well, you certainly do make it easy and pleasurable, and I think that's it makes a huge difference in people and being able to follow this because, like I said at the top of the show, it can be really complicated, and it shouldn't be, and I commend you for making it so easy for people to discover these alternatives that make such a huge difference in their health.
Well, I love to share. I always say that I wish when I was diagnosed with cancer at such a young age that, I knew these things. And so I just really, truly feel it's my life's mission, my life's work to share it with others. And so that's what I'm doing.
well, continue doing it, and I'll continue following you and trying a lot of this stuff, because you really have opened my eyes. And I know that you do a lot of stuff with women and do a lot of benefit with women, but I think without a doubt, men can benefit, a great deal from what you are sharing.
Well, thank you. And I have a lot of women who bring their husbands along board. So you wouldn't be the first man. So it's okay. But I feel like I call to the female just because of what I've been through. But I so appreciate this. I love your work, and I am thrilled to have been here with you.
Well, fantastic. Folks, there you have it. Definitely check out SheFlower.com. The videos, the information that Jennifer, Coach Ms.Mindful, shares on there is just a wealth of information for your health. And like she says, you will discover that, what makes you sick and what makes you tick. So with that, until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.